The number one reason students give for leaving higher education, for not completing the degree, not going back once they leave, they need to work. They need to make money. And we've made it even worse for them by saddling them with a very high college debt in many cases that kicks in as they go back to work to make the money that they need. We are long overdue for a system that reflects reality. As I hear politicians talk about the need to reskill the American workforce and to deal with the 9 million unemployed, I say back, do you really think we're going to ask a 40-year-old unemployed person with a mortgage to spend 4 to 6 years pursuing a degree? Not going to happen. Today's full-time and part-time students need programs that offer faster outcomes, more flexible outcomes, tracks that can be completed in weeks or months, not years. The idea that we measure education in years, in semesters that last months, is ridiculous. We should be able to measure success in weeks or months. I could go through, and it would make the speech a lot longer, which the one I gave last night had, all types of cool examples, but you've already begun hearing them. There are no end of schools that offer tremendously flexible approaches to degrees, no end of universities and colleges and technical schools that are offering online, online teaching. Middle Tennessee, where my daughter wants to get a degree in music engineering and is thinking about going there, they have courses that last 6 weeks. You can take 1, 2, 3, 4. You can graduate, and they have many students who graduate in 2.5 years with a degree. But those are exceptions. And we don't have a system. In the business world, if somebody innovates, all the rest of us copy it as fast as we can, and then we claim how brilliant we are for having innovated it in the first place. In the education system, it seems to be an anathema to adopt an innovation that somebody else did, because obviously it couldn't be as good as something that you would invent if you just had the time to focus on it. It's time to reinvent how we educate. I won't go through some of the thoughts. Again, I think you cover much of that in your discussions here. But the key to success is going to be, is it affordable? Can you do it in a time-effective fashion that meets the needs of a society that has many people who need reskilling and don't have the money or the time to do it in the way that we define as normal? Can we come up with a system that fosters the adoption of other successful programs, rather than letting each university think they have to reinvent their own particular spin on the innovation? Standardization is a word that you also never hear applied into the post-secondary system. There are solutions that work. They can be standardized. They can be implemented quickly. I was talking to a business leader who was proud of the fact that as he was working with the state system in Michigan to get curriculum reform to provide the type of workers, that he was able to get the curriculum reform done in 3 years. I can build a new site faster than that. Speed, innovation, we've got to provide value to the workforce, in the workforce, if we expect the taxpayer and the business community to keep supporting post-secondary education to the level we have. Because in today's global world, we have a choice that we didn't have in the 50s and 60s and 70s, which is we can move our work to other countries that have a better post-secondary system. That value in the workforce brings me to my second point. Not only do we have too few people completing post-secondary education regardless of the form, we have too few graduates entering the workforce with skills that we actually need. We're not graduating enough, and those that we graduate don't have the skills that we're looking for. Left unchecked, that's going to perpetuate and grow the talent mismatch. So that's why even as we tackle the challenge of increasing the completion rates in post-secondary education, we also need to acknowledge that not all degrees are created equal. We need to forge better alignment between post-secondary attainment and workforce planning to create a system that meets the real-world needs of those who are going to provide the jobs to the students who are going to graduate. And here's where the talent mismatch and the shortage of STEM competencies come sharply into focus. You would think that for 20 years we've acknowledged as a country the importance of having more scientists, more technology, engineering, and math degrees. It's been much talked about. College counselors talk about it. We've talked about reforming. the secondary system to give people more math exposure, science exposure as they're growing up. And so, of course, we probably have increased the number of STEM graduates. But the fact is, over the last 30 years, the percentage of people graduating from our post-secondary system with a STEM-related degree or credential has dropped from 11% to 9%. We're producing less. We now rank in the OECD countries 27th out of 42 in the proportion of college students who come out with a STEM degree. And these are the job-creating types of degrees and positions. In fact, and understand, by the way, that I have undergraduate degrees in communication and psychology. In fact, we graduate more visual and performing arts majors in this country than we graduate engineers. And employers are looking at this tremendous shortage in the engineering staff. In fact, Siemens, one of our customers, has 3,500 open engineering jobs they can't fill. And my engineering, science, IT spaces, practices that we offer, the number of orders that are more than 30 days old, meaning I can't find somebody, is growing by 10 to 15%, almost now as the economy is beginning to pick back up almost every quarter. These are jobs open. These are jobs paying, and often in the 6-digit range, that we can't fill. The manufacturing sector provides, I think, an interesting window into the difference between mythology and reality. Yes, we lost 2 million jobs in manufacturing. Yes, I now believe that many students are growing up thinking that you can't go to work in manufacturing, that it's all moved to China and so on, and it's not coming back. And yet Deloitte's new study shows that even with the unemployment rate we face today, there's 600,000 well-paying manufacturing jobs that can't be filled. At last night's presentation, one of the auto parts suppliers talked about 25 jobs he has that pay more than $150,000, not for an engineering degreed person, but simply somebody who is a very skilled technician. Can't fill them. These are jobs that provide access to the middle-class life. They do exist, but our post-secondary system is not producing individuals who can fill those jobs. 83% of companies indicate an immediate shortage of skilled workers. Again, not talking about college-degree workers, skilled trades, machinists, operators, craft workers, distributors, technician positions. And again, you listen to statistics, the average age today of a tool and die worker is now in the high 50s. And tool and die operations are changing how they operate and where they operate because we don't have the workers to fill jobs that pay well. Most of my clients expect the talent shortage is going to get worse. They're not expecting the American system to be able to change rapidly enough to provide the workers, and we're working with them to talk about where we move. I have data sets now that we're making available to talk about which countries are providing what types of workers at what pay rates, and they're not moving because of a pay differential. That's another myth. In these upper-end jobs, there is no pay differential. Talk to the Chinese government about wage inflation. It's making them crazy as their wages catch up for their skilled workforce equal to the American and Western Europe experience. There are examples where we're getting it right. You have NAM, that's National Association of Manufacturing, working, setting up specific skills, standardizing the skills they're looking for. There's no end of specific examples of companies working one-on-one. What we lack is not specific examples. What we lack is a widespread, quickly adoption of the effective examples. We know what works. We just simply don't have a will or a capability to enact what works. And again, we lack the competition that we face in the business world for dollars in order to make that happen, which is why the speed of adoption, I think, is much faster in the world that I live in than in the world now of post-secondary education. It's not going to get better until we start asking for accountability of the post-secondary institutions. Skip ahead here. We don't, incentives, to come back to your term, so I'll change a little bit here, I think is very critical. In my years in the academic world, incentives didn't happen. And the incentives for individual professors that when you got them was actually that you got to teach less, which was kind of cool because the better you were at teaching, the less you had to teach. I liked the whole little process as it unfolded when I was as a professor. Post-secondary education can't be granted an exemption from this revolution. It's got a role to play. It's time to step into this, and we need to think about the incentives that we offer. Other countries provide differential government support for your education based on the degree program you're in. Everybody has a right to get whatever degree you want. But if you're getting a degree that is judged to be in the national interest, and if it's the taxpayer who is providing support for that degree, the government has the right in order to say, we'll provide differential support. If you're going to go to a technical school and learn how to become a machinist, we are willing to finance that to 100%. If you want to go and become a music engineer, as my daughter does, maybe we'll back that up to only 25%. But based on what the country needs, we should be able to provide incentives to students to go there, because I will tell you what's not working is for us to give all types of speeches about how important science and math is. That's not really cutting it. But if you're also told that if you complete the degree, we're going to immediately forgive 50% of the loan, and that if you stay in the STEM profession for each of the next 5 more years, we will cut out another 10% of the loan, that's going to be effective. Just as it was back in my day when you could go and have your loan being forgiven or at least delayed if you worked for the Peace Corps, or if you went to the VISTA program and you taught in the inner cities. We can do these things with individual incentives. We should also differentially incent. This didn't go over well last night, by the way. But there's no reason that if the state is providing a pure pupil support to a post-secondary school, that it shouldn't be 5 times as high for the top 2 or 3 institutions in the state, and a fifth as low. The little incentives that states are playing with aren't enough. It takes significant incentives. We should be willing to shut down state institutions that don't have an adequate completion rate or don't have an adequate job acquiring rate after you're done. There should be nothing wrong with saying to State Community College X, you're done. You're out of business, we're redistributing your assets. We do that as corporations all the time. These aren't behaviors that we see in the world here. We need to give differential support for the STEM education. We've got to demand adaptivity and responsiveness in curriculum. To the government officials in Michigan last night, I said there is a fast-track process if I want to build a new facility in the state of Michigan. There is no fast-track process if I need a curriculum change. Why aren't there government people paid and incented on how fast they can engineer a curriculum change to meet the need of employers in their states? I can get a building permit now in weeks. I can't get a curriculum change in anything less than 2 years. Okay. If education is going to play the role, and by the way, that's not all the state's faults, it's the curriculum committees of the universities and so on that you have to work your way through here. McKinsey's recent productivity study, which you all have been talking about and referencing, I think is a great step in this direction as to what makes colleges and universities more productive, to provide the types of behaviors that I think we should incent as we go along. That is what we begin to deal with as we talk about the return on investment. And we don't talk about return on investment, we talk about it as an American right, an American dream that we provide support. We're long overdue in acknowledging that college for all is not a sound policy. We have got to move the economy forward by providing the type of secondary, post-secondary education that employers need. Thank you all for the time that you've spent here.